Yo, what's going on, guys? And just four things I want to talk today about. We'll do Jalen Green, Orlando Magic interested in D'Angelo Russell. The Lakers are allegedly going star hunting, and that includes targeting Trae Young. And how good the Bucks rotation with Mr. Chris Middleton, Giannis, Damian Lillard, and Brook Lopez on the floor together has been outscoring opponents by 16 points per 100 possessions. So before we start today's video, hit that like and subscribe button and let's get right into it. And let's start with, I guess it'll be Jalen Green. Boom. So Jalen Green, if you guys haven't been following, has been on an absolute tear. Okay, if you guys want to hear he went from being a guy last year who was kind of a poor man's Zach LaVine to now looking like a max contract guy. And I know Brian Windhorst said on his podcast that teams around the Rockets, this is not the Rockets saying this is teams around the league saying this, that it's not a coincidence that once Alperen Sengun got hurt, Jalen Green blew up because there's a lot more spacing on the floor, and Amen Thompson and Jalen Green together works better than Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun. And so teams are monitoring that, allegedly, which makes sense when you put it in that perspective. But just for March, he's averaged 29 points on 50% from the field on 21 shot attempts per game, 10 of those being three-pointers. He's hit 42% of those while getting to the free throw line 5 times a game. And he's at a true shooting of 62.5%, which is like better than anything else in his career, averaging 6 rebounds, 4 assists, steal and a half a night. Absolutely being phenomenal. So for a lot of people, you might just think, oh, it's been one good month, okay, especially during the doldrums of March. And we knew that Jalen Green was a guy that supposedly got offered for Mikal Bridges, but by Hoops Hype's own global rating metric, Green has been the best player in the NBA for the past week and almost for the past month, only behind Jalen Brunson. And perhaps what's most importantly is that since the beginning of March, the Rockets went on a 12 of their 13 games win streak. And they had I think before we make this video, the Rockets win streak was looking real good. They were a team that won 11. They're 10-0 in their last 10 games. So they're on an absolute tear. And this run has been concurrent and entirely despite the absence of Alperen Sengun, who was in the midst of his breakout season until he had that very bad ankle sprain. And those 29 points per game are only behind fourth, only behind Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Jason Tatum. He's scoring more than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Kevin Durant, Nikola Jokic in that time span. And he's done this, again, on like 63% true shooting, which shows his confidence, his ability now to come up in the clutch. And he's shown that, yes, we know Jalen Green's always been this highly talented scorer. He averaged 22 points per game in the 22-23 season. But the biggest difference between that, him being just a volume scorer, to nearly being the man that he is now, is insane. Because if you look at this breakout performance by Jalen Green is him taking advantage of a much needed opportunity and seizing the mantle from Fred VanVleet and Alperen Sengun. And I think this is cool because the team stylistic change in the absence of Alperen Sengun have been playing a part in this. Without their main pivot, Houston's pace of play has increased, something better suited to Jalen Green's dynamic and athletic style of play, who can get more downhill and fire up threes off the dribble with more decisiveness. And the shake in Jalen Green's handle and his excellent athleticism, allowing him to beat opponents off the dribble with his first step while reducing the need to feed the low post or the high post or the elbow or just worry about Sengun in the inside, because which clogs up the paint, is giving him the opportunity and the prerogative to do more. And obviously Sengun and Green, to become a cohesive unit and duo, will maximize each other's individual talents and the team's hopes of being a better one in the future. But it's hard to dispute that Şengün's absence has benefited Jalen Green as an individual. And from a trade candidate standpoint, Green now becomes extension eligible. He's in his third season, and he's eligible for his second contract this summer. And given that he's proven that he can play amongst the game's very best for an extended period, I think it's maximizing his trade value and his extension value at the level of production. So after this deadline, we heard that they tried to trade him for Mikal Bridges. And looking back at that, maybe that would have been an overpay by Brooklyn an overpay by Houston, and Brooklyn missed out on a great deal. But nonetheless, Jalen Green has become one of the best players, and it's been exciting to watch. And that's where I want to hear your guys' thoughts. What do you guys think of Jalen Green and what he's been able to do over this span? It's been phenomenal. It's been fun to watch. And I think it goes to show how good, because he's been reborn for this team. And I think it's one of the most exciting things to watch. And obviously, we know it's, as a result of the injury, but nonetheless, it's been very exciting to me. Yo, what's going on, guys? And of course, we got to talk about D'Angelo Russell. And my coworker at hoopshype.com, go check out US Today's Hoops Hype, talked about D'Angelo Russell having this season where he's been incredibly consistent, more efficient than the Brooklyn Nets season. And a team like the Orlando Magic could be one that would be interested in him. Now, Jovan Buha of The Athletic is saying Orlando's the team that people are talking with the Lakers, outside the Lakers, that could potentially give the most concern as a potential suitor. So let me hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you think of D'Angelo Russell going to a team like Orlando? I'm a Magic fan, so I'll let you know my thoughts shortly. But yeah, I want to hear that, because when you look again, you got D'Angelo Russell, who's just been absolutely efficient as all hell and playing a huge part in this offense for the Los Angeles Lakers. A guy averaging 18 points, 3 rebounds, 6.5 assists, shooting a true shooting of 59% from the field. And he's a guy that, as the season has progressed, between January and February, he was on a 24-game stretch where he was averaging 21 points a night on 7 assists a game, about 3 rebounds and just under a steal a night, while shooting over 45% from the field and 43% from 3 on 8 attempts from deep. So he's showing this ability to be an on-ball guy, an off-ball guy, and with the fact that they have Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony, Anthony Black, if you put in D'Angelo Russell, take out Markelle Fultz, you'd assume D'Angelo Russell can play next to any of those 3-point guards that I just mentioned, Suggs, Black, and Anthony. If that was the rotation of guards you wanted to keep, he can play the shooting guard or he can play the point guard. Suggs and Anthony, I think Suggs can play the combo. I don't know if Black could play the combo. Cole could probably play the combo. But I think we're seeing that. It makes sense. And when you look at the Orlando Magic salary going into next season, they're going to have some room to play with, and they're aware of that. As this season, currently, they're at 132. Looking into next season, they're at 85. And I believe that's counting, Joe Ingles and Mo Wagner, team options being picked up. You got Markelle Fultz coming off the book, Gary Harris. You assume Goga Bitadze is going to come back. Kevon Harris maybe gets converted. And then a draft pick. And the draft pick's probably going to take up $5 million. So $90 million. You still got about $40 billion. $40 million, not billion, $40 million to burn right there. So I think they would like to play with that. And I wouldn't be surprised if Orlando is a place for them. And I think realistically, it's not a bad fit. It makes sense to me. I would not be surprised if Orlando goes the Fred VanVleet route. All right, Fred VanVleet's contract is definitely a lot more savvy than people thought. It's a 3-year, $128 million deal. And I don't know if we'd give them that much, but the way that the deal works is the third year of the deal is a team option. All right. And the contract only has what? I believe it's the base salary. So when you go into the final year of that deal, it's up to them if they want to keep it, like the Rockets. So Fred VanVleet's under contract for next season, and then they could easily trade him because they could tell the team, hey, we'll just send this as a matching salary, and if you don't want to keep Fred VanVleet, you can just decline that team option. So in theory, I could see the Orlando Magic being like, here is a 2-year, 3-year, $90 million contract. First 2 years, fully guaranteed, $30 million each year. Last year, team option. And then depending how he plays the 2 years. So I think that's kind of the route that we could see the contracts take. That wouldn't surprise me whatsoever for a guy like D'Angelo Russell. And I think the biggest thing with him is I don't think he's going to get a max, but I think he can get a rather large contract that maybe also includes a 15% trade bonus, which if it has a trade bonus, it would give D'Angelo Russell the ability to not be traded and, have a say more in terms of, oh, if you trade me, I'm going to make more money. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing. And I don't think it's going to be like that 3-year 130. I could be seeing a 3-year $90 million deal. Maybe it's worth more, but I think that's what seems in the realm of possibility. I think another team, the San Antonio Spurs, I think young teams are looking at D'Angelo Russell and seeing the growth he's had as a person and the maturity as big reasons to why they're interested in bringing in a player like him into their roster, especially young teams. So I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section. But yeah, I'm definitely curious. But that'll be my thoughts right there. I wonder what's going to end up happening with the rest of the team and how it's going to play out for the Los Angeles Lakers in terms, if we look at their free agency, as the Lakers are a team that looking for the Orlando, because we just talked about Orlando, who's coming off the books. Now looking on the opposite side of things, you want to look at guys like the Lakers, who the Lakers next year, they're going to be already at $178 million. And that's with Taurean Prince, Max Christie, which is insane to think about. Like, Max Christie's contract's already expiring. And I think they did that contract. I think that was before the new second round pick contracts. But Taurean Prince, Max Christie, Spencer Dinwiddie are all coming off the books. And that's if the player options of Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, and Cam Reddish aren't picked up. I doubt Christian Wood stays. Probably Jackson Hayes, same thing. So you look at that and you're like, okay, it's hard to see D'Angelo staying. But they do have, I believe, his bird rights, or the chance to keep him. So anything can happen. But with the Los Angeles Lakers, Jovan Buha's YouTube channel, didn't know I was gonna have to be competing with him now. Still got more subscribers than you, bud. I'm just kidding. I'm don't actually care. Actually, I've never met Jovan, but I do know he's like 6'5", 6'7", something. He's absurdly tall. Either way, Jovan Buha says the Los Angeles Lakers are going star hunting this offseason, and that includes Trae Young. The quote is, yes, they are. I can confirm from multiple sources that the Lakers are going third star hunting this offseason. You'll have to probably give up Austin Reeves. The one name I hear is Trae Young. That's the most realistic one right now, end quote. Jovan Buha said, we know that the Hawks are playing way better defense without Trae Young. So there is that idea that, hey, maybe this is something that could potentially happen. For me, I think the biggest thing when I look here is this is a team that Anthony Davis has been the most consistent version of himself since the bubble, when they won that championship, looking like he can actually take over for LeBron James now. And with that, I think is the biggest thing when you look at a team like the Los Angeles Lakers, that there's going to be the possibility of thinking that, hey, I think this is a team that they're aware they're a third star away from being back into the conversation of being in the top of the West. When you think about, Anthony Davis, LeBron, if LeBron is, because I think if they can tell LeBron, hey, we'll actually go out and get a guy, he'll be committed to stay one more season, because we know LeBron is on the fence seemingly to come back this coming off season, depending on how their season ends, but as well as in the future, we know he wants to play with Bronny. I think the biggest thing we're seeing is the potential. I think they're aware that, if we can get a guy like DeJounte Murray, but now that's the script's flipped, oh, maybe we can get a guy like Trae Young, because it seems like maybe the Hawks, because Quinn Snyder likes DeJounte potentially more than Trae. Maybe we can get Trae, LeBron, and Anthony Davis is way more formidable trio than the current grouping of players that they have on the roster. I think that's the biggest thing is when you look here, we just looked at their salaries. They're at $169 million again in salary this season. Before they sign anybody, let's say Reddish, Hayes, Wood, Russell, and LeBron all pick up their options. They're at $178 million, and that's with Taurean Prince leaving. That's with Max Christie leaving. That's with Spencer Dinwiddie leaving. All right. So when you look at that, this team's obviously going to have to try to keep D'Angelo Russell because there's no upgrade in free agency. There's no one available. So when you think about that, crap, what about a sign and trade of D'Angelo Russell to another team for assets? Then you turn around, whatever assets you can get, because you can only trade D'Angelo Russell in a sign and trade by himself. He can be attached to non-tangible assets, which is like a draft pick. But tangible assets like a player contract cannot be attached to D'Angelo Russell in a signing trade. So you would send him there, get assets, then package Austin Reeves, which again, Jovan Buha has alluded that if a trade for Trae Young or another big fish is going to happen, that is probably going to have to include Austin Reeves. And I think they're fully fine with that. No offense to Austin Reeves, but Austin Reeves this season, we realize you aren't an all-star. You are not an all-star. You will not. I mean, I don't know if I'm not going to say never because he could go to another, but he's a good player. That is not an all-star. He's a good starter, but he's not an all-star. And they need an all-star. They need an all-star if they want to be a dominant team. So the idea of packaging a Rui Hachimura with a Austin Reeves, with a Gabe Vincent gets you to $40 million. Now you have Jalen Hood-Schifino if you want to put out as an asset, as well as Maxwell Lewis. Then I believe right now they only have 1 first-round pick, but if you wait to the offseason, they will have access to 3 first-round picks that they can trade. So with that, now you look at players who are making over $40 million, or let's just say who's making over $35 million that could potentially be traded or is worth even thinking about trying to trade. Now, I don't think I'm not saying that these players will be traded. These are just contracts that are in the realm of what we just talked about, 35 to 40 plus $40 million that the Lakers could go after, that I think, depending how things go. I don't think they're going to go after Karl-Anthony Towns, but guys that are in that range are, CJ McCollum, Darius Garland. Do I think those guys are going to be traded? No, but they can target those guys, okay? There are guys like Kyrie Irving that they could target. I don't think they're going to trade him within the conference, and it's looking really good. Another one, Tobias Harris isn't expiring. I don't think that's going to be, again, it's not a position of need. So next up, Zach LaVine. They could have gotten in this season. They didn't do it. They're not going to do it in the future. I don't think he helps them there. So then you look at Trae Young. He's a guy in that contract realm. Fred VanVleet. He's a guy in that contract realm, especially with that team option. That's something that they're going to be interested in. Unless the Bucks go horrendously wrong and Damian Lillard is super petty and, just says F this 1 year in Milwaukee, don't think that's going to happen. And then after that, the rest of the guys, it's Giannis, Paul George, Kawhi, Bradley Beal, Joel Embiid, LeBron, Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, everyone except LeBron, who's already on the team, not going to be traded. Now, when you look at the rest of the pieces in the league, Donovan Mitchell they could trade for, but again, I don't know if he's going to be traded. So you think of who's available or who could become available in terms of a trade pieces. I think that's where it becomes difficult. I mean, in a hypothetical world, you could trade for Andrew Wiggins and Chris Paul. I don't think that raises your ceiling at all. I do believe that Trae Young might be the best player that you could potentially get, and it actually might be smart for them to go after him. I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but it's just with the way that the Los Angeles Lakers have played this year, the Lakers are a team that statistically, they are first. I don't know if Darvin, unless okay, this is a team that is 16th offensively, 15th defensively in ratings, and their net rating is 19th, literally 0. 37% from 3, 7th ranked in the league. And the biggest thing is unless they go on a Western Conference Finals run, I would not be surprised if they move on from Darvin Ham after the season. Just from people I've talked about, Darvin Ham doesn't have the X and O's and the rotation knowledge, I would say. The thing with Darvin Ham is he was a hustle guy when he played in the league. He wasn't a fundamentals guy. So I think he's a better assistant coach than necessarily a starting coach or as a, not start coach, but as a head coach. I think he's a guy that can relate to people more than he can help develop or win a team with his adjustments. So unless they go on a radical run, I don't think Darvin Ham is coming back. So for that, I think stylistically, and the other thing is if Darvin Ham does stay, which there is a good chance that Darvin Ham does stay, but there's a good chance that he doesn't stay. But if he does stay, you need 3 stars to figure it out, because Darvin Ham is not going to help maximize his players' talents. That's my thoughts. That's my thoughts there. That's it. Have you guys not watched the video? Yes, Joel Embiid is nearing his return. He is looking good. He is moving well. Dang. He's looked good. I got this going like big, but here, let's go. This is how it looks. I guess the full video, if you guys want to see it, this is him out there. He's moving well. And Brian Windhorst on his podcast, The Hoop Collective, which I inadvertently started listening to. I was never a Brian Windhorst guy in the sense that he was never like my journalist, but one day I was listening to a podcast and it ended, and Spotify automatically started the Hoops Collective podcast. It's really not that bad. It's not my go-to, but he talked about the fact that Joel Embiid is on the road trip. Joel Embiid is probably going to play sometime in the next week or so. Now, seemingly, we know his meniscus was trimmed. Okay, from what we're hearing is meniscus was trimmed, and that means So the weird thing is we know certain athletes like James Wiseman missed an entire season, as well as I think Colin Sexton missed an entire season because of a torn meniscus. While in the NFL, I've seen multiple guys every single season literally tear their meniscus and then come back 6 to 8 weeks later, I feel like, in the NFL. So it's an interesting one for me, because I don't know what's the right answer on what the prognosis or the right recovery time for a torn meniscus should be, because it varies. I've seen reports of 8 weeks. I've seen several months. But what do we know about the 76ers? The 76ers have kept it afloat. Buddy Hield has been huge for them. They are the 14th ranked offense in the league, 12th ranked defense in the league, 15th in net rating, 2.1. Their 3-point shooting is 35.8%, which is 19th. Not a huge thing. Rebounding, you got Tobias Harris leading the way as of right now. We got Tyrese Maxey out here dishing 6 assists a night and 25 points a game from Tyrese. This is a team that is, one of the best free throw teams in the league. They are one of the best teams on the perimeter and getting steals. They're blocking, top 10 in blocks, and they don't really turn the ball over, which is pretty crazy to think about. But they are terrible at fouls. They're like the 4th worst team in fouling per game, and their field goal percentage at 46%. They're not the most efficient team in terms of shooting. They put up, they don't put up enough shots, but they don't hit it. So and again, obviously this is without Joel, but with Joel, they have 35 points per game score with Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey. Between just Maxey and Joel, that is 60 points, 77 you throw in Tobias Harris. Then you got 15 a night from Kelly Oubre, and Buddy Hield out here he's fallen back down to earth in the facilitating. They've told him you don't need to facilitate as much, but he's still facilitating a bunch. He's a guy who's out here averaging just under 4 assists a game and putting up, 13 points and shooting like crazy, 7 threes at 38%. Then you got 11.5 points from DeAnthony Milton, who's also facilitating a little bit. Cam Payne's actually looked pretty solid for them in the minutes, as well as Kyle Lowry continues to do his thing, 4.5 assists, just under 9 points, a few rebounds a game. And then you have Paul Reed and Pat Bev was a huge guy for them, but Paul Reed now there, Kyle Lowry and Cam Payne, huge for them. With them getting rid of Pat Bev, I think they lost some of that defense, but we're seeing guys like Ricky Council, as well as I know for them, Nick Batum has been someone that over the last few games we've been seeing, kind of like a defensive maestro for them. So I think that one's definitely an interesting one, as well as KJ Martin. He's done well in some of his games recently. Again, it's not consistent playing time, but the team's very deep. So I'm excited to see Joel Embiid come back, and that's where I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of the Philadelphia 76ers? And if Joel Embiid's coming back, I mean, this team's done a good job. They are currently 8th in the East, and if I'm in the East, and if this team, which they are, listen to how many games behind the 6th seed they currently are. All right, they are currently 2.5 games behind the 6th seed. 2.5 games behind the 6th seed, and they're 3-7 in the last 10. But if Joel Embiid comes back, they could really make that push, and I think scare people. But maybe I'm wrong. I think we're seeing a squad that is a bit better than people want to give credit. Maybe I'm getting too excited or just looking too much into this. I just think this is a fun team that has the ability to go ahead and surprise people. Again, this is a team that if you're in the play-in or if they end up being the 6th seed, you don't want to be the 3rd seed. You don't want to be the 2nd seed that potentially plays this team, or the 1st seed, whatever it ends up being. It's not going to be fun. This is going to be one of the better teams you've seen in a while at that, especially if I think Joel Embiid is going to be rusty for the first 2 weeks, but I think the injury isn't going to hold him back too much. So I want to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Did you know the Milwaukee Bucks are 15-13 under Doc Rivers? Yeah, they've lost more games so far with Doc Rivers than the same amount as in 28 games. They've lost same amount of games with Doc Rivers Jesus Christ, can't speak right here, guys. Adrian Griffin went 30-13. Doc Rivers went 15-13. And it's crazy to think that, is Doc Rivers a good or bad coach? I don't know. But what I can tell you, the Bucks are plus 16 in net rating when Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton, and Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard share the floor together. And I think that's the biggest thing that you need to look at if you are a Bucks fan. This is a team that can be good. This is a team that I think has the ability still to upset people and go on a run. Okay, and obviously, I think it's a bit more rusty than it was expected. They are the 5th best offense in the league, 16th defensive rating, 8th in net rating. But over the span of the last, 21 games where they've gone 13-8, they've had the 11th best offense, 6th best defense in that stretch. They're outscoring opponents by 16 points per 100 possessions. And yes, the Bucks have had several stops and starts this season as they've incorporated Damian Lillard into their core. And one of the element of integration has been challenging as the health of Chris Middleton. But Chris Middleton, as of late, is a guy that I think is showing, hey, I'm starting to get it back, baby. I'm starting to get those legs under me. And I think that's what they need. At the very least, they need their guy to come back. And I want to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you think? 6 games since the All-Star break, Chris Middleton's averaged 16 points on 50% from the field, 38% from 3. So that is huge for them. And for me, if we look at just, the Bucks in the last 28 games, these are their stats. It's definitely interesting because I think they're a team that they can be really good, but then on some nights they can be surprisingly bad. So in those 28 games, they've had their leading scorers, obviously, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's played in 25 of those games. Damian Lillard has appeared in 25 of those games as well, scoring 23 points a night. Both of them, shooting really well. Bobby Portis is putting up 15 a night there. So is Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton's only played 10 of those games. Bobby Portis, Jay Crowder, and Pat Connaughton are the only one who's played in the last 28 games. And then you got Malik Beasley, who's putting up 12 points a night and field goal attempts, with 8 of those being from 3. You got yourself Brook Lopez scoring 11 points a night while also going out there and just being a menace, almost 2 blocks a game. And after that, AJ Green's coming out, shooting well from 3, averaging 6 points. So is Pat Connaughton. Pat Bev in his 21 games so far, 5.5 points. And after that, Danilo Gallinari was a guy that we thought was going to make a bit more of an impact. He's, playing 9 minutes a night. And same thing with Marjon Beauchamp. But, We haven't seen Mr. Danilo Gallinari since the 24th, and when he plays, it's very like against Boston, he played 19 minutes, but between that, like the other games, it wasn't as much. So it is definitely interesting to see how they're gonna go about it, because if you're a Bucks fan, I think the biggest thing, okay, as a team, their team stats, I think over this span is that it's just like they need to just be more. I just don't see like the hunger sometimes. Maybe that's just me, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the whole situation. If you guys are a Bucks fan, Chris Middleton, when he's out there, is good. I just think the biggest problem for the Bucks, like, let's look at their most recent game. Their most recent game was against the Atlanta Hawks, where they had, as you guys have been watching, that's the highlights I've been looping. Was it a good game? It was fun. But the biggest thing is if you look at this, their starting lineup: Brook Lopez, Beasley, Middleton, Bev, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's awesome. And then you bring in Damian Lillard into that lineup. You take out Pat Bev. Malik Beasley is there. And then Pat Bev's off the bench with Pat Connaughton and Jay Crowder and Bobby Portis. That's a solid 9-man rotation now. Way better than what it was in the beginning of the year. So I think there's ways to solve this team. I want to hear your thoughts down below. That's it from you guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. But peace out.